Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Vadveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. So continuing with the discussion on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya in 5 features, text 84 onwards. Krishna Vishaya Prema Parama Purushartha, Yara Age Trina Tulya Chari Purushartha. Religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation are known as the 4 goals of life. But before love of Godhead, the 5th and highest goal, these appear as insignificant as straw in the street. Straw in the street. And how much is the value of a straw, piece of straw in the street? Nothing. People go over it, trample it, drive over it. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Dharma, Artha, Kam, Moksha in front of Krishna Prem. They're just like straw in the street. Means devotees have they don't even care for Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. While chanting the holy name of the Lord, one should not desire the material advancements represented by religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and ultimately liberation from the material world. So while chanting, all these ideas should not come to our mind. As stated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest perfection in life is to develop one's love for Krishna. Prema Pumartha Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matam Idam. When we compare love of Godhead with religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, we can understand that these achievements may be desirable objectives for bubhukshus, or those who desire to enjoy this material world, and mumukshus, or those who desire liberation from it. But they are very insignificant in the eyes of pure devotee who has developed bhav, the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. So devotees don't care for all this, char purushartha. And Vedas talk only about this, chatur purushartha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma, religiosity, Artha, economic development, Kama, sense gratification, and Moksha, liberation, are the 4 principles of religion that pertain to the material world. Therefore, in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is declared, Dharma projita kyantamavatra. Cheating religious systems in terms of these 4 material principles are completely discarded from Srimad Bhagavatam. For Srimad Bhagavatam teaches only how to develop one's dormant love of God. Bhagavad Gita is a preliminary study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore it ends with the words Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. To adopt this means one should reject all ideas of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, and fully engage in the service of the Lord, which is transcendental to these 4 principles. So when Krishna says Sarva Dharmana Parityajya, so he's not talking about Hindu dharma or Muslim dharma or any other dharma. He's talking about the dharma or the path that we take for material progress, any kind of those paths. Just surrender unto me. Love of Godhead is the original function of the spirit soul, and it is as eternal as the soul and the supreme personality of Godhead. This eternity is called Sanatan. So Sanatan Dharma, everybody is talking these days about Sanatan Dharma. What is Sanatan Dharma? That Dharma is nothing to do with the body, because body is perishable, it's not Sanatan. Soul is Sanatan, Supreme Lord is Sanatan. So the relationship between the soul and the Supreme Lord, which is called love of Godhead, that is Sanatan Dharma. When a devotee revives his loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it should be understood that he has been successful in achieving the desired goal of his life. At that time, everything is automatically done by the mercy of the Holy Name, and devotee automatically advances in his spiritual progress. So this is the only Sanatana Dharma. When a devotee revives his loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is what we need to achieve. Pancham Purushartha Premananda Amrita Sindhu. Mokshadi Ananda Yar na hai Eka Bindu. For a devotee who has actually developed bhav, the pleasure derived from dharma, artha, kama, and moksha appears like a drop in the presence of the sea. Krishna namera phal prema sarva shastra ka hai. Bhagya se prema tomai kari levda. The conclusion of all revealed scriptures is that one should awaken his dormant love of Godhead. You are greatly fortunate to have already done so. So this Mahaprabhu's spiritual master is telling him. Premare svabhave kare chitta tanuksho Krishna racha ranna prapte upajaya lobha. It is a characteristic of love of Godhead that by nature it induces transcendental symptoms in one's body and makes one more and more greedy to achieve the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So it induces transcendental symptoms in one's body and makes one more and more greedy. Upajaya lobha. So it's not like devotees, when devotees are making progress, they become like apathetic, or means no feelings, like a rock, no emotions. No, they are more and more emotions because they are purified emotions now. And they're more greedy to achieve the shelter of the lotus feet of the Premara swabhave bhakta hase kandaka unmata haya nache iti uti bhai. When one actually develops love of Godhead, he naturally sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes chants, and sometimes runs here and there, just like a man. In the service of Krishna, not otherwise. In this connection, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami says that sometimes persons who have no love of Godhead at all display ecstatic bodily symptoms. Artificially, they sometimes laugh, cry, and dance just like madmen. But this cannot help one progress in Krishna consciousness. Rather, such artificial agitation of the body is to be given up when one naturally develops the necessary bodily symptoms. Actual blissful life manifested in genuine spiritual laughing, crying, and dancing is a symptom of real advancement in Krishna consciousness, which can be achieved by a person who always voluntarily engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If one who is not yet developed imitates such symptoms artificially, he creates chaos in the spiritual life of human society. So these symptoms will naturally manifest, naturally develop. Genuine spiritual laughing, crying, and dancing. These are the symptoms of bhav bhakti. Because without Krishna, or being in so much of separation of Krishna, one just feels this world is not worth living in. He cries, and then then the other emotions come. Then he starts laughing and dancing, and common people just cannot understand what is going on. So now Krishna's Kavidas Goswami gives the Ashta Satvik Vikar, 8 symptoms of ecstatic ecstasy. Shved Kamba Romanchashru Gadgad Vavaranya Unmad Vishad Dharya Garva Harshadanya Eta Bhave Prema Bhakta Ganera Nachaya Krishnera Anandamrita Sagre Bhasaya. Perspiration, trembling, standing on end of one's barley hairs, tears, faltering voice, fading complexion, madness, melancholy, patience, pride, joy, and humility. Can we imagine? Pride and humility at the same time. These are various natural symptoms of ecstatic love of Godhead, which causes a devotee to dance and float in an ocean of transcendental bliss while chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And some of these symptoms also develop in a person who is afraid, like perspiration, trembling, standing on end of one's barley hairs, tears, faltering voice, fading complexion, madness. All this can happen for somebody who's really afraid in the material world. But there is a huge difference between material symptoms and spiritual symptoms. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Preeti Sandarbha explains this stage of love of Godhead. Transcendental love of Godhead is not under the jurisdiction of the material energy, for it is transcendental bliss and pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Supreme Lord is also under the influence of transcendental bliss, when one comes in touch with such bliss, in love of Godhead, one's heart melts, and the symptoms of this are standing of the hairs on end, etc. Sometimes a person thus melts and manifests these transcendental symptoms, yet at the same time is not well behaved in his personal transactions. This indicates that he has not yet reached complete perfection in devotional life. In other words, a devotee who dances in ecstasy, but after dancing and crying appears to be attracted to material affairs, has not yet reached the perfection of devotional service, which is called Ashaya Shuddhi, or the perfection of existence. So sometimes these symptoms can be shown by somebody temporarily, or maybe there's a glimpses or reflection of these symptoms. So the only thing is, yes, he has not reached perfection, but slowly he will. One who attains the perfection of existence is completely averse to material enjoyment and engrossed in transcendental love of Godhead. It is therefore to be concluded that the ecstatic symptoms of Ashaya Shuddhi are visible when a devotee's service has no material cause and is purely spiritual in nature. These are characteristics of transcendental love of Godhead. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Save Punsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Radhokshaji Ahaitokya Pratihata Yayatma Suprasidati. So that religion is best which causes its followers to become ecstatic in love of Godhead. That is unmotivated and free from material impediments. For this alone can completely satisfy the self. Yayatma Suprasidati. Completely satisfies the self. And only love of Godhead can do so. So, but the one thing is, might sometimes while chanting or while doing some other services to the Lord, we might develop or get some symptoms, some of these symptoms, or a reflection of these symptoms, temporarily manifestations of these symptoms. We might get, and this is Krishna's way of giving us some doses of bhav bhakti, so that we remain steadfast on the path. At the same time, we cannot understand what the other person is going through. A guru might be able to, Prabhupada could tell, but we are not able to. At what level the other person is. Of course, we like to call everybody pure devotee, is pure devotee, she is pure devotee. Maybe they are, and maybe they are not. But the point is, we are not here to judge anybody else. We are here to make our own progress and help others in their progress. That's all. The problem starts when we start judging. And then we also lose our focus. So we have to focus on our progress. How we can help others also, yes, but main focus should be on our progress. Bhala haila paile tumi parama purushartha tomara premete ami haila kritartha. It's very good, my dear child, that you have attained the supreme goal of life by developing love of Godhead. Thus you have pleased me very much, and I am very much obliged to you. According to the revealed scriptures, if a spiritual master can convert even one soul into a perfectly pure devotee, his mission in life is fulfilled. Even one soul. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always used to say, even at the expense of all the properties, temples and mathas that I have, if I could convert even one person into a pure devotee, my mission would be fulfilled. Big statement. Means it's so difficult to become a pure devotee, to fully surrender and develop this love of Godhead. It's very difficult, however, to understand the science of Krishna, what to speak of developing love of Godhead. Therefore, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya and the spiritual master, a disciple attains a standard of pure devotional service. The spiritual master is very happy. The spiritual master is not actually happy if the disciple brings him money. But when he sees that a disciple is following the regulative principles and advancing in spiritual life, he is very glad and feels obliged to such an advanced disciple. So that's the right spiritual master. And actually, one place Prabhupada said, a cheater cannot be a guru. Guru means a bona fide guru. Not that a cheater we call a guru. So he's not guru, he's cheater. So and another symptom of a real bona fide spiritual master is when he sees his disciple is making progress spiritually. Not that he's bringing me lots of money or bringing lots of people to become devotees or bringing lots of high-ranking officials. Those are good things. I'm not saying they're wrong, but that's not the standard. Nacha gav bhakta sange kara sankirtan Krishna nama upadeshi tar sarvajan. My dear child, continue dancing, chanting, and performing Sankirtan in association with devotees. Furthermore, go out and preach the value of chanting Krishna. For by this process, you will be able to deliver all fallen souls. It is another ambition of the spiritual master to see his disciples not only chant, dance, and follow the regulative principles, but also preach the Sankirtan movement to others in order to deliver them. For the Krishna consciousness movement is based on the principle that one should become as perfect as possible in devotional service oneself, and also preach the cult for others' benefit. There are two classes of unalloyed devotees. So unalloyed means pure devotees, no mixture of anything. Namely Goshti Anandis and Bhajan Anandis. Bhajananandis. Bhajananandi refers to one who is satisfied to cultivate devotional service for himself. Who is satisfied to cultivate devotional service for himself. He is happy in his own bhajan. And Goshti Anandi is one who is not satisfied simply to become perfect himself, but wants to see others who also take advantage of the holy name of the Lord and advance in spiritual life. So Bhajananandi and Goshti Anandi, the two kinds. The outstanding example is Prahlad Maharaj. When he was offered a benediction by Lord Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Maharaj said, Navid je par duratyaya vaitaranyas tvad virya gayana mahamrit magna chitta. Shoche tato vimukha chetas indriyat maya sukhaya bharam udvahato vimuda. My dear Lord, I have no problems and want no benediction from you because I am quite satisfied to chant your holy name. This is sufficient for me because whenever I chant, I immediately merge in an ocean of transcendental bliss. And this is saying to Nrsimhadev, and at the age of 5 years, he was only 5 years old. And his father was just killed by Nrsimhadev. And he's saying, for me, I don't have any problems. No lamentations. Nothing. I only lament to see others bereft of your love. So this is the heart of a devotee. His heart is full of compassion for people who are suffering, living entities who are suffering, wasting their times in the material world, bereft of bhakti. And they want to give them. They're rotting in material activities for transient material pleasure and spoiling their lives, toiling all day and night simply for sense gratification with no attachment for love of Godhead. I'm simply lamenting for them and devising various plans to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. So this is heart of a devotee. And actually this was the mode of Prabhupada. He just couldn't see people suffering, wasting their time, wasting their life actually. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains in his Anubhashya, a person who has attracted the attention of the spiritual master by his sincere service likes to dance and chant with similarly developed Krishna conscious devotees. The spiritual master authorizes such a devotee to deliver fallen souls in all parts of the world. Those who are not advanced prefer to chant the Hare Krishna mantra in a solitary place. Such activities constitute, in the language of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a type of cheating process in the sense that they imitate the activities of exalted personalities like Haridas Thakur. There's a nice book by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, Vaishnava K, means what kind of Vaishnava you are. So in this book, he makes the mind as a person and he is talking to the mind. What kind of devotee you are? You're chanting in a solitary place just to get the adoration of public in general. But you're not pure. Of course, those who are chanting in solitary places, there are many, many devotees all over, Braj and Navadvip also. They just prefer to chant in a solitary place. But Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj and Prabhupada's mood was to go out and preach. Don't just sit and chant. Of course, we chanted on Ekadashi day, that was a special day. We could chant extra rounds, but the point is, preach. So Prabhupada also at some place, he said that our mission is obviously not to make bhajananandis only. We have to preach, but it's like we are bhajananandis who like to preach. So combination of both. One should not attempt to imitate such exalted devotees like Haridas Thakur. Rather, everyone should endeavor to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in all parts of the world and thus become successful in spiritual life. But also, until we follow this principle of chanting at least 16 rounds every day, which is for our purification, our immunity to attacks of Maya, we won't be able to preach properly. So purity has to be there to preach. But as Prabhupada is writing, not like we try to imitate Haridas Thakur and want to chant all day, every day. We cannot imitate him. And Haridas Thakur himself also, even after chanting 192 rounds every day, he would go out and preach. So it was only chanting, he was preaching. That's what devotees tell him later on when he was in Jagannath Puri, that Sanatana Goswami, I think so, that some devotees, some bhaktas are acharyas. And some preach, so some are only showing by their example, but some preach. But you are both, you do both. You show by your example and you preach also. So that is Haridas Thakur. Of course, we cannot imitate Haridas Thakur. But the point is to do both. Have our own bhajan properly and preach. One who is not very expert in preaching may chant in a secluded place, avoiding bad association. But for one who is actually advanced, preaching and meeting people who are not engaged in devotional service are not disadvantages. Means that's also bhakti. It's not like preaching is not bhakti. It is bhakti. A devotee gives the non-devotees his association, but is not affected by their misbehavior. Thus, by the activities of a pure devotee, even those who are bereft of love of God can get a chance to become devotees of the Lord one day. And can you imagine? Prabhupada, at the age of 69, he left Vrindavan. He could have spent the rest of his life chanting, doing his bhajan, but he left. And left not just Vrindavan, he was staying at Radha Damodar temple in Seva Kunj. And he left that to go to America, to be between hippies, drug addicts, who have no knowledge, no idea even of what is bhakti, who's a Vaishnava, who's Krishna, who's Radharani, who's Chaitanya. No, didn't know anything. Prabhupada went there to make devotees, to fulfill the order of his spiritual master. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur advises that one discuss the verse in Srimad Bhagavatam beginning, Naitat samachare jatu manasa pihi anishvara, and the following verse in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Anasakyasya vishayan vetharam upayunjata nirvanda Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate. One should not imitate the activities of great personalities. One should be detached from material enjoyment and should accept everything in connection with Krishna's service. So cannot imitate great devotees or great chanters, but at the same time, yes, Prabhupada says one who is not very expert in preaching may chant in a secluded place, but at the same time we can pray to the Lord while we are chanting to please give me some strength so I can also preach, I can also help others come towards you. Because when we preach, it's not like I know everything about bhakti or all the scriptures. I don't know anything. But in the process, preachers also get the mercy of Guru, mercy of Prabhupada, mercy of Krishna. That this person is taking risks, going out, trying to preach. So by mercy only we make progress. So we have to make a balance of our own bhajan. It has to be done properly every day, and preaching. So everybody has a different threshold of how they want to progress. So we should do both. Eta bali ek shlok shikaila more, bhagavatera sare bale vare vare. Saying this, my spiritual master taught me a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the essence of all the Bhagavatam's instructions. Therefore, he recited this verse again and again. So this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 40th verse, was spoken by Sri Narad Muni to Vasudeva to teach him about the Bhagavad Dharma. Vasudeva had already achieved the result of Bhagavad Dharma because Lord Krishna appeared in his house as a son. Yet, in order to teach others, he desired to hear from Sri Narad Muni to be enlightened in the process of Bhagavad Dharma. This is the humbleness of a great devotee. So, what was the verse? And it is called essence of Bhagavatam's instructions. Evam vrita swapriya nama kirtya jata nurago druta chittuchay asati atho rodati roti gayati unumadavan rityati lokabaya. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who's very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated, and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. So this is what happens to a devotee who takes pleasure in chanting. All these ashta sattvic vikar, 8 types of ecstatic symptoms. They develop in his form, in his body. Eitar vakyami drida vishwasadhari nirantara Krishna nam sankirtanakari. Say Krishna nam kabu gayo yana chai gahi nachi nahi yami apana ichai. I firmly believe in these words of my spiritual master, and therefore I always chant the holy name of the Lord, alone and in the association of devotees. That holy name of Lord Krishna sometimes causes me to chant and dance, and therefore I chant and dance. Please do not think that I intentionally do it. I do it automatically. Mahaprabhu. A person who cannot keep his faith in the words of a spiritual master but acts independently never receives the authority to chant the holy name of the Lord. It is said in the Vedas, only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. This Vedic injunction is very important, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu supported it by his personal behavior. Believing in the words of his spiritual master, he introduced the Sankirtan, just as the present Krishna consciousness movement was started with belief in the words of our spiritual master. So this is a Prabhupada. He wanted to preach. We believed in his words and tried somehow or other to fulfill them. And now this movement has become successful all over the world. Therefore, faith in the words of the spiritual master and in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a secret of success. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never disobeyed the orders of his spiritual master and stopped propagating the Sankirtan movement. So he always did that. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, at the time of his passing away, ordered all his disciples to work conjointly to preach the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. Later, however, some self-interested, foolish disciples disobeyed his orders. Each one of them wanted to become head of the mission. They fought in the courts, neglecting the order of the spiritual master, and the entire mission was defeated. We are not proud of this. However, the truth must be explained. We believed in the words of our spiritual master and started in a humble way, in a helpless way, but due to the spiritual force of the order of the supreme authority, this movement has become successful. Of course, Prabhupada takes a very humble position, but without the purity of Prabhupada, nothing would have been possible. It is to be understood that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted and danced, he did so by the influence of the pleasure potency of the spiritual world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never considered the holy name of the Lord to be a material vibration, nor does any pure devotee mistake the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to be a material musical manifestation. And we should not make it either, just musical program. Lord Chaitanya never tried to be the master of the holy name. Rather, he taught us how to be servants of the holy name. If one chants the holy name of the Lord just to make a show, not knowing the secret of success, he may increase his bile secretion. But he will never attain perfection in chanting the holy name. So he may increase his bile secretion. So bile juice comes out of what, liver or gallbladder. But that's about it. I mean, it's only material. If we chant the holy name of the Lord just to make a show, just to impress the audience, that how in different tunes and different pitch I can sing this song. No, this is chanting of the holy names. We should approach it as a servant of Krishna and servant of the holy name. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented himself in this way. I am a great fool and do not have the knowledge of right and wrong. In order to understand the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra, I never followed the explanation of the Shankar Sampradaya or Mayavadi sannyasis. I am very much afraid of the illogical arguments of the Mayavadi philosophers. Therefore, I think I have no authority regarding the explanations of the Vedanta Sutra. I firmly believe that simply chanting the holy name of the Lord can remove all misconceptions of the material world. I believe that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can attain the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. In this age of quarrel and disagreement, the chanting of the holy names is the only way to liberation from the material clutches. So this is what Mahaprabhu was saying. So by chanting the holy name, Lord Chaitanya continued, I became almost mad. However, after inquiring from his spiritual master, I have come to the conclusion that instead of striving for achievement in the four principles of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, it is better if somehow or other one develops transcendental love of Godhead. That is the greatest success in life. So one who has attained love of Godhead chants and dances by his nature, not caring for the public. This stage of life is known as Bhagavata Jivan, or the life of a devotee. So chanting and dancing, the Sankirtan of the Lord, name of the Lord. That's it. That's all one wants. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, I never chanted and danced to make an artificial show. I dance and chant because I firmly believe in the words of my spiritual master. Although the Mayavadi philosophers do not like this chanting and dancing, I nevertheless perform it on the strength of his words. Therefore, it is to be concluded that I deserve very little credit for these activities of chanting and dancing, for they are being done automatically by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So much importance is in place on chanting and dancing and doing it in a proper mood, perfectly, purely, and all the um, ecstatic symptoms will appear in the body, manifest in the body of a devotee, and not only he is purified, everybody or anybody who sees him, hears him chanting, also gets purified. So important. I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.